of AW3 to the show now. Will give us a little bit of background on your company. What's the value proposition you're going out with?
Yeah, so AW3 Technology is a venture studio. So we actually have multiple projects that we're building in-house. We also do consulting.
Love it.
And we also are planning on launching a pre-seed fund. We work primarily in inception to Series A.
Okay, so what brought you to the idea that we need another venture studio?
Well, I guess I needed a venture studio because I was working on a lot of ventures. I started my career actually doing a nonprofit work. I was the founder career. I was a software engineer by trade, studied computer science and economics. And I started my founder journey actually as a political activist, starting a 501c4 nonprofit called We Stand Up, which served as both a news channel. We did social media news for, and this was 2017. We've interviewed the founders of Black Lives Matter, or helped them with their strategy for political activism. We also worked with famous artists based in LA and New York City. And it also served as a think tank. I read hundreds of books about different current events and issues such as climate change, economic inequality, social justice. Then I started a educational software company because I was like, well, I guess if in order to save the world, people need to know what they need to do.
Right.
And then at some point I realized, and then when COVID hit, I stopped working on it, and I realized it's not really about how to teach people, it's what people need to know. So I got really into studying all kinds of different things, and I started coming up with all kinds of different ideas. It was like an explosion after I had just done 2 startups back to back. I went through the VC lab by the Founder Institute.
Yep.
By AW3.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, and I was one of the first cohorts, and I basically realized that one, I was much more hands-on. I'm a developer, designer. I design and build, and a lot of people were basically leaving the program to start venture studios because they're more flexible. So my venture studio is a C Corp. It's not a general partnership, but it plans on launching a general partnership that the venture studio will manage.
Gotcha.
And
so how do you position that studio? Who are you trying to attract?
Basically founders of all types, ones that are looking to find cool project ideas, and they can work on ones that are already being developed in-house, ones that have great project ideas but are struggling to find funding. We offer various different types of
Give us an
packages.
example. Give us an example of one or two of your founders or your packages or programs.
Yeah. So like one founder, for instance, was a software engineer. He wanted to quit his job and start a startup. He had a vague idea of what he wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And then we started working on the project together. He had saved up about $10,000, right? And then he had a child with a woman, and they was already born at that point in time. And then she left him, and they got into a legal battle over custody, for instance. Oh. And then what I did was instead of us being like, okay, the company is dead, and he has to go get a job, basically AW3 helped him get consulting clients that now
could bootstrap him in a way.
Yeah,
right?
So basically, one of the main things is that AW3 itself has been bootstrapped through consulting revenues, and we help founders with doing consulting projects because also a lot of founders just simply don't have the experience.
Right.
In early stage venture.
Yep.
So if they're working on it and it turns out they don't, one great way is to basically consult other ventures that have more funding.
So I come to you with a project. I've got, the product roadmapped out with my ChatGPT-4 example.
Of course.
I've got it fully mapped. I just haven't designed it and built it yet. Is that a good time to come to you? I don't have a lot of money. I maybe 50.
Yeah, absolutely. The earlier the better, to be honest, because most founders, what they do is they make a huge bunch of mistakes very early on that most likely will kill the company.
Yeah.
So the earlier the better, but we've worked with companies, basically inception to seed. We've helped companies raise millions of dollars at the seed level.
And when you say you help them, do you work on the deck? Because I know, FI is a great resource for deck improvement, but also do you introduce them to your LPs or your other friends in your network? Do you take them out on tours and things like that?
I look at fundraising as like selling a house. So first we got to look at the house and make sure that it's all fixed up as much as possible. So we would do that. and then also will help with fundraising, whether it's figuring out a proper strategy, whether it's equity crowdfunding, if that makes sense, which is kind of a new model, or if it's finding the right angels, or if it's going, hey, guess what, you guys aren't going to be able to raise money.
Right.
We need to really focus on finding clients instead, where people will often focus too much on fundraising and not enough of clients. But yeah, so we have a lot of really exciting internal projects as well.
Give me an example. What are you excited about?
So
I know a bunch, but give me one example.
So we have a project called Nirvana, which is a blockchain that we recently patented the consensus mechanism for. It's a proof of love consensus mechanism. It's patent pending. It was filed on July 26th this year. I had the idea for it, and it's owned by AW3, but I had the idea for it a few years ago, but it took a while to get the patent filed. The way that it works is that instead of a proof of stake blockchain, where basically the validator, it's how much you stake, is your influence in the network. It's proof of love, which is how much you stake, multiplied by how much you give to the network, which is a direct redistribution of wealth. And then you take the square root of that.
I love that.
So it's the geometric average of how much you keep for yourself and how much you give. And that actually makes it almost impossible to achieve 50% of the network. So it works very, it's not clear whether it's even, it might actually make it impossible to get 50% of the network.
Yeah.
I haven't proven that mathematically yet.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say, let's skip the math for just this this discussion.
But it does make it more efficient, the network. It makes it, and also more egalitarian and more viable in the long term, because if you think about it, with a proof of stake network, it's essentially just proof of wealth.
So for your venture studio, do you have things like annual goals? Are you chasing return on investment and IRR, or are you more looking at broadly, we just want to keep funding projects and supporting the ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean, growing the revenues, we're doing about 20 to 30,000 a month in revenue right now, which is up from last year on average 20 to 30,000 this year. Last year was more on average like 5 to 15. Okay. And then the first year was like, probably did 5 to 10 total. Right. So, we have been
tracking nice.
We have been growing, yeah, but that has, and we want to scale the consulting part, because that's how we get, we now have, through consulting, we now have between 1 and 10% in 6 companies, and we have over 100. We have 100% in over 10 startups.
That's a nice portfolio.
Yeah,
Is this Fund 1 then?
Yeah, we haven't raised any money. I mean, we raised roughly a little bit over 100,000. Yeah. But yeah, we're looking to start Fund 1 which is called Oliphant Capital. That will be the fund, the GP.
So I might have skipped over this, Will, but the skill that you provide on the consulting level, is there an area that you focus on, or is it pretty broad?
We focus on fundraising and very high level execution. It's like executive consulting essentially.
I got you.
But we will come in and we do equity deals. Yeah. Sweat equity deals. Okay. To build out products, and oftentimes it really just depends. We're flexible though, and one thing that's cool is that if the person does, for instance, actually need to go get other job or consulting, AW3 can basically take over the project and hold it for them if we believe it makes sense to continue working on it. We're trying to get away from entrepreneurship being kind of like a crapshoot, because it really isn't. It's a game of skill, and it's like 1 in 10 people. 1 in 10 surfers say can surf Mavericks, but that doesn't mean that if you go try to surf and you have no experience, you have a 1 in 10 chance of being able to do it.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much. This has been great. I love what you guys are doing on that wave.